It's another Wednesday, it's another PMQs. Now, during Boris Johnson's time in office, there was a couple of times where Keir Starmer did fail to land the punches. And a few weeks it would be back and forth, who was better than who managed to outsmart each other. Until Johnson's time towards the end, where he just started repeating vaccine rollouts and fastest growing economy in G7. So I thought when Rishi Sunak came into power, we'd have that sort of back and forth yet again. So who knows? Let's see if he does any better this week. So without any further ado, let's dive right in.
Mr. Speaker, the member for South Staffordshire told a civil servant to slit their throat. How does the Prime Minister think the victim of that bullying felt when he expressed great sadness at his resignation?
This is a very nice opening start. In Sunak's reply to Gavin Williamson's bullying resignation letter, he expressed great sadness in having to let him go. And as Keir Starmer's pointed out, how does the victim feel in that? Let's see his response.
Mr. Speaker, unequivocally the behaviour complained of was unacceptable, and it is absolutely right that the Right Honourable Gentleman has resigned. For the record, I did not know about any of the specific concerns relating to his conduct as Secretary of State or Chief Whip, which date back some years. I believe that people in public life should treat others with consideration and respect, and those are the principles that this government will stand by.
Now we can see there he's definitely been prepared for this question. He used very, very careful language. He didn't admit to knowing exactly what had been said, whereas Jake Berry, the former chair of the Conservative Party, had told him that Williamson was a bully. He is now just trying to cover his back. But he didn't fire him. This is the big point. He was quite happy to let him go on. He said that he had full confidence in him. Apparently, according to the Times newspaper, I think it is today, they said that he even tried to change his mind about resignation. Not very good at strong leadership there.
Mr. Speaker, the member for South Staffordshire spent years courting the idea he can intimidate others, blurring the lines to normalise bullying behaviour. It's precisely why the Prime Minister gave him a job. The truth is simple. He's a pathetic bully. But he would never get away with it if people like the Prime Minister didn't hand him power. So does he regret his decision to make him a government minister?
Nice follow-up question.
Mr. Speaker, I obviously regret appointing someone who has had to resign in these circumstances.
It almost started off quite well there. But then he had to say who had to resign. Again, he's not showing any leadership here.
But I think what the British people would like to know is that when situations like this arise, that they will be dealt with properly.
And yet he hasn't dealt with it. He hasn't dealt with it at all. He didn't want to fire Williamson because he knew it would cause him trouble on the backbenches. So he's had to do it in a way, or wait for Gavin Williamson to resign on his own accord, so that it's his decision.
And that's why it is absolutely right that he resigned, and it's why it is absolutely right that there is an investigation to look into these matters properly. I said my government would be characterised by integrity, professionalism and accountability, and it will. Here's Starmer.
And here he spouts integrity, accountability and professionalism, and then sits down next to his Home Secretary, who resigned after breaking the ministerial code 6 times, and then was reappointed by him.
Mr. Speaker, everyone in the country knows someone like the member for South Staffordshire. A sad middle manager getting off on intimidating those beneath him. But everyone in the country also knows someone like the Prime Minister. The boss who is so weak, so worried the bullies will turn on him, that he hides behind them. What message does he think it sends when, rather than take on the bullies, he lines up alongside them and thanks them for their loyalty?
So here we can see that there is a kind of a narrative to the questioning. It's not really about Gavin Williamson. It's all about Sunak's ability to lead, ability to control his government. And you can see here he's not even paying attention. Dominic Raab has to nudge him to get back to his feet.
Mr. Speaker, the message that I clearly want to send is that integrity in public life matters. And that is why it is right that the Right Honourable Member has resigned. It is why it is right that there is a rigorous process to examine these issues. But as well as focusing on this one individual, it is also right and important that we keep delivering for the whole country. And that's why this government will continue to concentrate on stabilising the economy, on strengthening the NHS and on tackling illegal migration. Those are my priorities. Those are the priorities of the British people, and this government will deliver on them.
His answer's pretty weak here. He tries to move it on to other subjects. He's clearly getting bored.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is he can't stand up to a run-of-the-mill bully. So he has no chance of standing up to vested interests on behalf of working people. Take Shell. They made record profits this year, £26 billion. How much have they paid under his so-called windfall tax?
Okay, moving the conversation on now, he's looking at the more important matters. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be having a budget where people are going to have to pay more in tax. They're going to have less public spending going on. And so, as a country, we need to be looking at where we can raise money.
Mr. Speaker, I was Chancellor who introduced an extra tax on the oil and gas companies. Right, but he talks, Mr. Speaker, he talks about working people. The Right Honourable Member voted against legislation to stop strikes disrupting working people. He voted against legislation to stop extremist protesters disrupting working people. That's because he's not on the side of working people, Mr. Speaker. That's what the Conservatives are for.
And this is going to ring hollow. The Conservatives are well known not to be on the sides of working people. In fact, it's working people that are actually doing the striking. But nevertheless, everyone knows that the Conservatives look after the rich. They're not looking after the working people.
Mr. Speaker, I'm against all of those causing chaos, damage to our public services and to our economy, whether they are gluing themselves to the road or sitting on the government benches. Mr. Speaker, there was no answer to the question because the answer is nothing. Shell haven't paid a penny in windfall tax. Why? Because for every £1 they spend digging for fossil fuels, he hands them a 90p tax break, and it's costing the taxpayer billions. So will he find a backbone and end his absurd oil and gas giveaway?
So here you can see why he started the questioning off against Gavin Williamson about not standing up to bullies. Shell are exploiting a loophole within the current tax system. So as long as they dig for fossil fuels, out of every £1 they'll get 90 pence back. This is money that should be going back into the public finances. This is money that could help people with their energy bills this year. In his previous answer, he just said he was on the side of working people. So he's going to put his money where his mouth is. Is he on the side of working people, claim that money back and give it to the poorest people or people just generally across the country to help with their energy bills? Or is he going to look after the big oil and gas companies and let them keep that money?
Well, Mr. Speaker, what the party opposite will never understand is that it's businesses investing that create jobs in this country. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House, we understand that. We will support businesses to invest, to create jobs, because that's how we create prosperity, that's how we support strong public services, and that's what you get with a Conservative government.
So there we are then. He's going to look after the businesses.
There's only one party that crashed the economy, and they're all sitting there. It's a pattern. Mr. Speaker, it's a pattern with this Prime Minister. Too weak to sack the security threat sat around the cabinet table. Too weak to take part in a leadership contest after he lost the first one. Too weak to stand up for working people. He spent weeks flirting with the climate change deniers in his party, then scuttled off to COP at the last minute. In the budget next week, he'll be too weak to end his oil and gas giveaway, scrap the non-dom tax breaks, and end the farce of taxpayers subsidising private schools. That's what Labour would do, a proper plan for working people. Yes. Mr. Speaker, if he can't even stand up to a cartoon bully with a pet spider, if he's too scared to face the public in an election, what chance has he got of running the country?
That was a very powerful speech, and you can see the whole narrative come together. Very well done.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman talks about judgment about putting people around the cabinet table. I would just gently remind him he thought the member for Islington North was the right person to look after our security. But, Mr. Speaker...
And it's pointless going to listen to the rest of the answer. He's yet again used Jeremy Corbyn as an answer. I guess Penny Mordaunt was absolutely right that they're going to be bringing this one out every week. It's pathetic. It really is pathetic. All it's doing is highlighting that Labour have moved on from Jeremy Corbyn. He's no longer in even the Labour Party. He really needs to up his game. This is just pathetic. I thought Boris Johnson was bad. Towards the end there, I really thought he was bad. But this is dire. This is absolutely dire. Not even 1 point this week. But we've got the budget next week, so there'll be a lot of questions around that, and it will be interesting to see what they're going to do with it and how much it's going to hurt the British public. So now go and watch Vet Cooper slapping down a Tory backbencher when he thinks he tries to be clever. The video's on screen now. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.